Hi class, this is Mrs. Cornett and I'm going to show you some examples from section 4.3. This video will specifically talk about how to identify if two lines are parallel or if they're perpendicular. Okay, first I want you to remember that parallel lines are going to have the same slope. It's represented down here, M1 equals M2. That means the slope of the first line is equal to the slope of the second line. If two lines are perpendicular, the slopes are negative reciprocals. The slope of the first line equals the reciprocal in the negative version of the first line. Okay, take a look at these examples. It says use the equations of the lines to determine whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Each one of these are already in the format of y equals mx plus b, which that is the slope-intercept form. And so what we're going to do for each of these is just look at the slopes and determine if the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. 39, line 1 has slope of positive 2. Line 2 has a slope of positive 2. So without even graphing these, we know that these two lines are parallel because the slopes are equal. Okay, take a look at number 40. We have a slope of negative 1/3 and a slope of positive 1/3. They are opposites. One is negative and one is positive, but it's not the reciprocal of the other slope. And these are not the same fraction because one is negative, one is positive. So these two lines are neither parallel or perpendicular. Okay, look at 42. We have a slope of 2. And the second line has a slope of negative 1/2. So 2 and 1/2, that is definitely a reciprocal. Positive 2 and then the negative 1/2, that's the negative reciprocal. And so these two lines are perpendicular. 43, we have the slope negative 1/3 and the second slope is positive 3. So just like question 42, these are opposite reciprocals. One is positive, one is negative. And 1/3 is the reciprocal of 3/1. So these two lines are perpendicular. Okay, next, we are going to determine the slope of the line given on the grid and then figure out the slope of a line that would be parallel and a slope that would be perpendicular to this line on the grid. The first thing you have to do for questions like this, identify the slope of the line that's on the grid. I'm going to color in two ordered pairs that the line crosses right at the corner of the grid. So for example, this ordered pair, and here's an ordered pair, and here's an ordered pair. And so from here, we're going to read this graph left to right. Do you see that if you go down 2, which will represent that as a negative 2, and over 1, that we get to the next dot on the grid, and then we can go down 2 again and over 1. And so the slope of the given line is negative 2/1, which is negative 2. And so a parallel line will also have a slope of negative 2 because slopes are equal if they're parallel. A perpendicular line will have a slope of the negative reciprocal. So because the original slope was negative 2, our slope will be positive 1/2 because that's the opposite reciprocal of negative 2. Okay, take a look at 46. I want you to do the same thing. I'm going to just circle in where the line crosses right at the grid. And we always read these graphs left to right. And so this is up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. And so the slope of this line is positive 1/2. That means the parallel slope is also 1/2. And the perpendicular slope, this is the opposite reciprocal, so it would be negative 2. 47, as you can see, all of these ordered pairs cross. We rose up 0 and over 1. So the slope will be 0/1, which is 0. Slope will also be 0 because it will also be a straight line. But the perpendicular line will run completely vertical, and all vertical lines have an undefined slope. 48, this is an undefined slope because we're going to go up 1 and over 0, so the slope is 1 over 0. But anytime 0 is in the denominator, it's an undefined slope. So your parallel slope will also be undefined, but your perpendicular slope will be completely horizontal, and a horizontal line always has a slope of 0. Okay, in these two examples, it asks to determine whether the lines that pass through these pairs of points are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. When you're given just the ordered pairs, you need to find the slope of both of these lines and then compare those two slopes. You need to remember the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So take a look at 51. Line number 1, the slope equals 9 minus negative 1 over 5 minus 0. 9 minus negative 1, if you add the opposite, it's 10. 5 minus 0 is 5. Reduce that fraction to the whole number 2. Now let's compare it to the slope of line number 2. We'll plug it back into the slope formula. 1 minus 3 over 4 minus 0. 1 minus 3 is negative 2 over 4, which simplifies to negative 1/2. First line has a slope of positive 2. The second one has a slope of negative 1/2. Those two numbers are opposite reciprocals of each other, and so these two lines are perpendicular. Okay, take a look at number 60. The slope of line number 1 would be 5 minus negative 1 over 1 minus negative 2. When you add the opposite in the numerator, that would be a positive 6 over 1 minus a negative 2 is the same thing as 1 plus 2, which is 3. And so line number 1 has a slope of positive 2. Line number 2, when we use the slope formula, it's 5 minus 3 over 5 minus 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. 5 minus 1 is 4, which simplifies to a positive 1/2. Line number 1 has a slope of line number 2 has a slope of positive 1/2. These are reciprocals of each other, but the signs are not opposite. You need to have one positive and one negative in order for it to be perpendicular lines. Because they're both positive, we would write the answer neither parallel or perpendicular lines. Okay, that's all for this video. I hope this helps you as you are solving problems that require you to identify parallel and perpendicular lines. As always, if you need any help, please let me know.